Once upon a time,
in a land far away.
I'm Katrina.
And I'm Geoff.
This is the Fairy Tellers Podcast.
Myth, legend, folklore, fable.
We explore what they say about cultures then and now,
Grab a hot cup of cocoa and a comfy seat,
while we tell you a tale.
Welcome back to the podcast. Just like TikTok, you thought we were gone, but we're back, baby.
You wish it had only been 12 hours.
It's been a little longer than 12 hours, but we are back in 2025.
Yes. Congratulations to everybody on making it to 2025. We're super excited for a new year and more tales to be podcasting. So, fun fact, Geoff and I actually got to see each other over the Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
We had at one point the briefest glimmer of an idea to do a Fifth Friday live event, but instead we used the time to enjoy our families together.
But that's the past, Katrina.
Yeah.
Back to 2025. Some of you may remember how stoked I got back in the good old year of 2022 when there was Tuesday, where it was February 22nd, 2022, and I was like out of my mind excited. And I had to find something to live for in the year 2025 because, well, I don't know, never mind. I would have to explain too much, but like I like even year or odd years better than even years, but like a year that ends in a 5 is like an honorary even year to me.
Indeed, me too.
So like
You're
I'd like
right.
it a little less than the even years, but anyway, so it's like 2 odd years in a row. No, it's not. It was an even year. Oh no, 2 even years in a row is what I'm trying to say, but not really.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I had a friend who helped me out and he let me know that the year 2025 is the only year that we will live through that the year is a whole square root. So like the square root of 2025 turns out to be a whole number. Not going to happen again in our lifetimes. And that if you take the numbers 1 through 9, cube them and add them together. So 1 cubed, 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed, all the way up to 9 cubed.
I'm not going to do that, but continue.
Equals 2025. Apparently, both of those things could be complete lies that he told me because I did not even bother to like get out a calculator and fact check that.
Yeah. You just wanted to believe that this year was going to be better than your regular odd year.
Yeah,
years.
I just wanted to believe. So there we go.
Nice. Yeah. It's like we're in a new year, new us, hopefully calmer year for both of us.
Yeah. Oh, we probably haven't talked about the fact that I also moved.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna like force it.
I forgot.
Geoff, you moved at like the worst time of year I feel for anyone to move, 2 weeks before Christmas.
2 weeks before Christmas when we were going out of town, and it happened like very suddenly.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way. It wasn't like we got kicked out of our house or anything like that. Like we had an awesome opportunity to move into like a new place that was bigger that we could have, more space and whatever, which is really, really nice. But it was just kind of like, oh, now we've like literally got 2 weeks before we're leaving. And like I work at a place where the beginning of December is like one of the busiest times of the year, absolutely, for us. It was like work got super busy, and then I was coming home and like having to pack, and then like getting out. It was like a crazy couple of weeks getting packed and then moving.
Yeah. So it was wild because I basically like saw you at Thanksgiving and then did not speak to you again until like the new year because I was like, I'm just gonna back away from that and not because I knew I wasn't going to be asking you, hey, do you have time to record a podcast? I already knew what the answer was. And the answer was, oh God, help me, please.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know where my microphone is. It is packed away and I have not yet found it. I mean, I have now, but that would have been the response basically any time in the month of December. So that is one of the reasons for our slightly more than 12-hour hiatus that we went on for the podcast. So we appreciate your patience with us. Yes. And it is cool. We're settling in well to this new house and it's exciting. And I have like a nice little space to be podcasting from. So it'll make it easier to do the podcast too, which will be good, which means maybe again, no promises, but maybe more regular than the irregular that we have been.
We're always a little tentative now, but we're excited. This new year, it should be good. It should be great. I'm super stoked. And today we're going to be starting a new not project. I say it's not a project because none of the episodes will have anything to do with each other. It's like not something that's like a series. This is my getting over burnout and enjoying the process of our podcast. It is my way of putting some focus on the joy of the tales back into the telling of the tales. And so this year, while we will be returning to the Pourquoi Tales series, because I am fully aware that we started that, then the year got crazy, then it got nuts, then we disappeared off the face of the planet. And then we've done a couple like little, remember the Pourquoi Tales that we were going to do? And we're going to do it. We're going to do it. I promise. So we will be returning to that. What my aim is going to be is making sure that the like research and scholarship episodes that we do also get really balanced out with sharing some tales that don't need much said about them besides like, listen to this nonsense. Because I mean, one thing that we've definitely noticed over the years of like doing the podcast is even when we're telling the tales as episodes that are just kind of for the joy of telling the tales and being like, this is a weird tale. This is a weird episode. Or not a weird episode. This is a weird collection of tales. Like, let's talk about them. And like, they are fun and they're funny. Down the road, when we do another episode that is like heavy on scholarship, we'll be like, oh, actually, this reminds me of this tale.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our love and enjoyment of a tale precedes us finding out something wild about it.
Yeah. Which is always fun when that happens.
Yeah. So instead of waiting until I find out something worth talking about it, we might as well just enjoy the episode, and then you'll remember the stories, or we can reference them back. Yeah. I just want to tell some funny, crazy, silly stories.
Me too.
So, for this episode, content warning for a bunch of Grimm's brother level violence and slapstick murder. Y'all. Is that a good content warning? Being like, there's going to be almost Tarantino level violence, and then like slapstick murders. Murders less foul. But anyway, and there will be a bunch of animals doing other animals' violence, animal on animal violence, which in stories, I prefer that more than human on animal violence. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
same.
still, it's not totally my favorite. I'm not a person that takes pleasure in like violence, unless it's slapstick murder. I like the hard stance I took on like being against violence. And like, unless it's really funny. This is a morals and values podcast. It's not. I don't have any.
Oh.
What a wild thing to say about myself. Oof. Yes. Okay. So this episode is featuring ATU 210, The Traveling Animals and the Wicked Man.
Oh.
That's what it is called. But you'll see that like in some cases, when we start traveling farther afield than Germany, it's not a wicked man.
Mm.
But we're going to start in Germany. We're going to lay the groundworks for ATU 210. And the first story in the Brothers Grimm collection, it's called Riff Raff. In other translations, it's called The Pack of Ragamuffins.
Oh man, I don't know which one I like better. I guess I'll have to hear the story and then see which one actually I feel is more appropriate to the tone. Because if it is slapstick murder in this one, then Band of Ragamuffins might be the funnier one. Riff Raff?
Riff Raff. This Riff Raff.
Kind of cool.
So one of the things that I absolutely love about this story is the way that it is.
Insightful.
Yeah, and you're about to experience it for yourself. So there is such a big cast of characters in a very short story.
Okay.
So there was once a rooster, and he turned to his lady hen and he said, it's time for us to go up to the top of the hill and eat the nuts that have finally ripened, because we need to get our fill before the squirrel hauls them all away from us. And so the hen is like, all right, let's go. This sounds great to us. They went up the hill, and it was a wonderful day, and they stayed all day late into the evening. And the story has a little like narrator's interjection where it says, now, I do not know whether it was because they had stuffed themselves too much or whether they had become too high and mighty, but they did not want to return home on foot. And so the rooster decided, oh, I know what I'll do. We'll build a small little carriage out of the nutshells, which I don't know. For me, that feels like more work than just walking home. So I'm leaning towards the high and the mighty part. So when it was finished, the hen got in and said to the rooster, okay, now pull me home. And the rooster was like, no, excuse me. I would rather go home by foot, leaving you here than harnessing myself to a carriage. Obviously, a lesser creature needs to be doing this part. So they started quarreling with each other, and then a duck started to walk past. And the duck looked around and he saw that the nuts had all been eaten up. And he was like, oh, you thieves. Who said you could come up on my nut hill? And he was like, you'll pay for this. And so the duck started to charge at the rooster, but the rooster quickly threw himself on top of the duck and dug his spurs, because roosters have spurs on the back of their feet. Dug his spurs into her and harnessed her to the carriage as punishment. Then he hops up onto the box of the carriage. I don't know. Listen, the size proportions are what throws me off, Geoff, because I know how big a hen is. I know how big a rooster is, and I know how big nuts are.
Yeah.
So they can't be in a one walnut shell of a carriage. So is it constructed entirely of shells? You know what I mean? Are they shells bound? Anyway, I'm getting too into it. Whoever's creating the art is the people who, and there has been art created, and it is it's like a giant walnut shell.
Nutshell.
Yeah, like a single half of a nutshell, and they're sitting in it, and there's wheels attached.
Maybe
and I'm like,
walnuts were just bigger back in the day.
Oh, that's right. That's true. Because the rest of this story is also very logical and very real to life. Katrina, don't go so heavy into analyzing wait, how big is this nutshell? But anyway, so the rooster hops up into the box of the carriage so that he can be the coachman for his wife, who is sitting in the carriage. Very nice. So fancy. And they set out with the rooster being like, giddy up, duck, run as fast as you can. So they had gone quite a distance when they encountered two different travelers on foot. And again, this is when things get more weird than they already were. The two travelers that they met on foot were a needle and a pin. And the needle and the pin said, oh, stop for us, because they were worried because it was almost dark and they were concerned that they were going to be stuck outside in the dark traveling on this road. So they asked if they could have a ride. It also said that the pin and the needle, they had been out at the Taylor's Tavern outside the town gate and had possibly one beer too many, which I'm okay, so this pin and this needle, they're both drunk and need to get off of the street. So they're like, can I have a ride on this carriage? I'm like, all right, perfect. This is all making good sense.
This duck-drawn carriage.
This duck-drawn nut carriage. And so the story says, since they were thin, they didn't take up much room. So the rooster was like, oh, of course you can have a ride with us, as long as you promise not to step on me or my wife, which I'm like, yeah, I would also, with a pin and needle, be like, yeah, stay away from me.
Yeah, that's interesting too, that it's don't step on us. So I think about me stepping on a pin and a needle, probably because pins and needles in my world aren't sentient and they can't do stepping. Yeah. That probably is why that is what I think.
Yeah. It's not because typically when I'm experiencing them, they're not drunk.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm less concerned about where they're sticking themselves. I'm more worried about where I'm sticking myself in relation to them.
Right, because I'm drunk.
Yes. When I do all my needlecraft, obviously. Good. This is all coming together. So they climbed into the carriage and they went off and were riding for quite a way when they came to an inn. And they decided, you know what? I think we've gone far enough. I think let's sleep here for the night. It also said, as the duck was not walking well, but swaying from side to side, they had all been getting a little sick in the back of the carriage. I'm like, okay, well. So, yeah, they decided to stop for a night at an inn. It says that at first, like, the innkeeper raised a lot of objections. He was like, oh, actually, the inn is kind of full. I don't know if we have space for your kind. Just like, what's our kind? Like, I don't know, a bunch of birds.
Barnyard animals.
Yeah, and a pin and a needle. It's like, oh, we're already too full. We don't serve your kind. Like,
it's
all
like,
right.
the pin and the needle, they're thin, so we have room for them. But the rest of y'all birds, get out of here.
Get out of here. But they, started sweet talking the innkeeper, and they offered him an egg that the hen had laid in the carriage, like along the way. And they told him that if they could stay the night, he could keep their duck. This poor duck. And they were like, and ducks, this duck will also probably lay an egg a day. So if you think about it, we're offering you like infinite egg for lodging. And so the innkeeper was like, okay, fine, you can like spend the night here. So they ordered some food, obviously. And they had a merry time. And then early in the next morning, sun was coming up. Most people were asleep. The rooster woke up first. Obviously, he woke up at first cock crow because of he is, you got it. He's a rooster.
Well, I mean, before.
Yeah, I guess so.
He would up before then. Or does he do it does he crow in his sleep and wake himself up? That would be a hilarious, like, animated movie where it's like the rooster, like, sleeping and like the sun, like, just, you see like the beam of the sun, like, going over his face in the bed, and then like right when it hits over his eye, he like involuntarily like starts
just like
and then like he's his own like alarm clock, and he like bonks himself on the head to like stop the alarm from going up.
I loved that. I loved the world you were creating.
I'm pitching this to Pixar.
It's beautiful. So the rooster went and he woke up his wife, and they went and they got the egg and pecked it open and started eating it for breakfast.
Whoa.
Yes, I know. It feels like cannibalism, but also it might actually be something that chickens do.
It is something that chickens do for sure. Yeah. I've heard of this, and it's sad.
Yeah.
Well, is it sad?
Hence,
in the context of this story, definitely.
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially because they had given it as payment to like the innkeeper, and then they were like, just kidding, it's our breakfast now. So not wanting to get caught, they went and they threw the shells onto like the hearth.
Uh-huh.
And they went to the needle, who was still asleep, and they grabbed him by the head and they stuck him into the innkeeper's easy chair.
Oh, jeez.
This is the part of the story where I'm like, oh, this is just a setup for like a long slapstick chain of events.
Yeah.
So then they stuck the pin into his towel and said, and finally, without much ado, they flew away over the heath. Like, oh, beautiful.
Wait, they could fly this whole time. Why were they taking the duck-drawn carriage? Just kidding. It makes sense for chickens. They can't fly very far for very long.
They got too high and mighty, and they got to have this the fancy carriage ride all day, and then sleep in an inn. They were like, all right, well, that was fun.
Have a delicious egg breakfast, set up an elaborate trap, and then they flew the coop.
I really appreciated that. I also appreciate the way you like looked at me when you said it, like you were like,
get it? Get it?
So the duck, who liked to sleep in the open air and had spent the night in the yard, heard their wings as they flapped away. And so she woke up, found a brook, and swam off.
Ducks can fly way better than chickens can.
So all of the fowl had left.
Flown the coop.
And a few hours later, the innkeeper finally got up, washed himself off, and he went to take the towel to dry himself off, but the pin scratched his face, leaving a red mark from ear to ear, which I was like, oh.
Jeez.
He must have wiped his face really fast with the towel, not realizing like
that there was a pin in it.
Yeah, until he'd done it too fast. So obviously he was like hurt and irritated. So then he went into the kitchen and he wanted to light his pipe. And as he leaned over the hearth where the fire was, the eggshells popped into his eyes, like exploded. Except I am going to say that so eggs do explode if you heat
put them
them
whole into
put them whole into like a fire. And so I'm like, this is kind of stretching it for me. I don't think the shells do that.
Will like pop. But these eggs popped in his eyes and he's like, ow.
So he's like, and then he yelled out, "Everything's after my head this morning," which is an interesting thing to say. Maybe it sounds cleverer in German.
Probably.
And so he went to sit down in his easy chair so he could settle down, kind of recalibrate himself. But he jumped up immediately screaming, "Ow," because of course the needle was stuck in the chair and stuck him right in the butt. So now he was completely angry and he suspected that his guests who had arrived so late last night were the culprits behind everything. And when he went looking for them, they were all gone. And he swore he would never again let Riff Raff stay at his inn, especially when they eat so much, pay nothing, and play mean tricks on top of it all. And I thought this was an interesting one to start with, just because, again, the tale type for this is called The Traveling Animals and the Wicked Man.
Yeah. This man did nothing wrong.
No, he didn't. He did absolutely nothing wrong.
That we know of.
I feel like what the story should be called something more or less, or this tale type should be called something more or less that's random objects constructed to perform a long, elaborate slapstick comedy routine. Right. I like how it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Because that's what it really is this random object, then this random object shows up, then this random object, and you're kind of okay, we're getting a collection of weirdos. What's going to happen? And it's it's all a setup to a bunch of slapstick. So there is another one of this same tale type in the Brothers Grimm collection. I think there might be others too, or ones that incorporate some of the same motifs in different spots. But the other one, I'm trying to remember, your wife was helping us with our German where it was Air Corbis.
Air Corbis.
Something like that. Oh, good.
Yeah. Air Corbis. Corbis.
And Geoff is going to be retelling this version of the tale.
This version called Air Corbis. The titular character is a human. Interesting. So, once upon a time, there were a hen and a rooster who wanted to take a trip together. And so the rooster built a beautiful carriage out of what? We don't know. Doesn't say walnut shell. But this carriage had red wheels, and they hitched it to 4 mice. And the hen climbed into the carriage along with the rooster, and they drove off together. And after they'd been going for some time, they came across a cat who asked them, "Hey, where are you going?" And they decided that it would be cute to rhyme. So they said, "We're going to see Air Corbis today. We're off without delay." And the cat's like, "Hey, take me with you." And so the rooster's like, "Gladly. Sit in the back so you won't fall out in front," which was very considerate of him to say, to be concerned for the cat's well-being. And then he says some more rhymey stuff. "Be sure you take good care, for I've got clean red wheels down there. Roll on, you wheels, hi-ho. Squeak, squeak, you mice, hi-ho. We're going to see Air Corbis today. We're off without delay." Which is what? How has Disney not made this into a thing yet? You know?
Indeed.
It's song,
right there.
It's already written for you in the public domain. Anyway, so they're riding along in their wagon with red wheels, a cat, a rooster, and a hen. And a millstone comes along, and then an egg, and then a duck, and then a pin, and then finally a sewing needle. Where have we seen this cast of characters before? They all got into the carriage and rode along. That's a pretty big-ish carriage.
Yeah.
When they arrived at Air Corbis's house, he wasn't there. So the mice pulled the carriage into the barn, and the hen and the rooster flew up onto a perch inside of the barn. The cat settled down by the hearth. The duck took its place by a well sweep. The egg wrapped itself in a towel. The pin stuck itself in a chair cushion. The sewing needle jumped on the bed right into the pillow. And the millstone set itself down above the door. And thus the trap was set. It doesn't say that. But It seems pretty clear, especially in the context of the previous story. What's about to go down?
Yeah.
When Herr Corbus came home, he went right to the hearth to make a fire, but the cat threw ashes into his face. He ran quickly to the kitchen to wash the ashes off, but the duck splashed water in his face, which, given what just happened, was actually kind of doing him a favor. As he tried to dry himself with the towel, the egg rolled toward him. Oh, the horror! And broke open so that his eyes became glued shut. Now that actually is a problem. After going through this, he wanted to sit down and rest and recover from whatever the heck was going on to him. And so he sat down in the chair, but the pin stuck him. And in his rage, he ran and threw himself down on the bed, but the sewing needle stuck him as his head hit the pillow. He let out a scream and was so furious that he decided to run out into the wide world. However, just as he got through the front door, the millstone jumped down and killed him. Herr Corbus must have been a very wicked man.
No evidence, but...
You know what is kind of hilarious to me about this story now that I'm thinking about it? Is that the rooster and the chicken didn't do anything. The rooster and the hen didn't do anything in the end of the story. They're just we're going to Herr Corbus's house. And after I read it the first time, I was they are going to his house to murder him. This was premeditated murder. But I don't know if it was because they didn't do anything unless that was their plan all along to get their murderous band of ragamuffins together. So they could go and kill this wicked dude.
They were just kind of letting it see what happens. Let's leave this as just see what happens.
I'm putting together a team for one last job. We're going to take out Herr Corbus, the wicked man. It's unclear to me why the rooster and the hen wanted to go to Herr Corbus's house. Because they wanted to go to a trip. They instigated this whole thing. They built a beautiful carriage with the red wheels. And they attached the mice to it. But they didn't participate in the shenanigans that went down at Herr Corbus's house. Maybe they just wanted to, his barn was their favorite vacation spot.
So this tale type, it seems very much it's to tell a funny story where basically you're hearing them collecting the people and the items and stuff, and you're just not sure of how the shenanigans are going to go down, but you know that it's going to be shenanigans. Yeah,
the rooster and the hen going on a trip together, that in a carriage or whatever, that sets you up to be oh, this is going to be one of those stories where they mess somebody up or they murder somebody. Yeah. But you're how's this going to happen? So you start seeing it's a millstone, an egg, a duck. Oh, what are these things going to do? It's going to be so crazy.
Especially when it's a thing where it's an egg. Because I feel you could come up with so many different things where you think of an object.
How could I harm someone by this?
Wouldn't normally hurt some. Yeah. How could I? And so it's like a spoon, and the spoon falls and gouges his eye out. And now he's wandering around blind, and he steps on a roller skate.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's so that's the fun of it is the story gets set up, what kind of story it's going to be at the beginning, and then you're oh, I wonder how this is going to play out. How is the cat going to contribute to this man's untimely demise? Can't wait to find out.
And no, I'm the millstone, it's such a finisher item, when it's oh, I'm going to go sit on the top of this. You're you already know.
It doesn't take much imagination to be I wonder what the millstone's going to do.
Kaboom. But yeah, it's all of this setup where things perfectly fall into place. And I feel there are episodes of TV shows where I'll be watching and I see it start to happen.
Yeah.
And immediately the first show that I thought of was Modern Family.
Okay.
Where there'd just be episodes where different things were happening away from each other.
Oh, and you're how are these all going to come together to...
Yeah, but then when they do, it comes together in this slapstick way where oh no, because this character earlier in the day had put this chocolate cake in the fridge and didn't know, and this person. So then it leads to that moment at the end where it's chain of event, slammed cake into face, and everybody jumps out and is happy birthday.
Yeah.
And then the person whose birthday it is comes around the corner and is what?
Yeah.
And it's end scene.
And it's it's one of those times where the formula And it's the same thing like with TV shows. Like there are certain things like happening in sitcoms. Like it's like a trope that happens. Like, oh, like this thing happened. This thing happens all the time. Oh, it's so unoriginal. But like sometimes when it's well done, like it's relying on the fact that you know. It's like, yeah, it's been this type of thing's been done a million times, but like you haven't seen it quite like this yet. So it's like, some of it is like that tension that's building as you're seeing the trap be built, up until it's like, know it's going to go wrong. But like, that's part of the fun is like, how is this all going to come together? And then it happens,
Yeah, and it's like the satisfying moment when it's like, and now all the dominoes are falling.
Exactly.
You knew that they were going to get knocked over.
And it wouldn't be as interesting if you didn't know. Like if you've never seen it before and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy twist at the end where like the cake hit him in the face. Like that wouldn't be, no one would react that way. They wouldn't be like, what a crazy twist. I can't believe it. Like it's only enjoyable because you know the tropes. I mean, not only, I think you could still, I don't know. It's hard to say. I was gonna say like, would you pick up on that? Like, oh, these things are all coming together and something is going to happen at the end. Like,
no, I feel like the millstone finally falling on the guy's head after like the whole chain of things, especially if people are like picking different items to have it be like different items happening. Yeah. When finally that chain starts happening and then that final gabonk dead.
Well,
it's like hilarious.
Right.
And it's like, it's satisfying.
Yeah, that is satisfying.
In a way that's only slapstick murder can be.
Exactly. And I was like, I'm asking this question like in the hypothetical of like, would it be the same? Would the people get it? Would it be as enjoyable if they didn't know? You know what? I know the answer to this because it was my experience when I read this story. I had no idea how it was going to come across. I was like, what the heck is happening? Like a hen and a rooster are going on a carriage ride. And then they're like going to see some dude named Air Corbus. And like they pick up like various other animals and inanimate objects to go to the house. And then they're all just like jumping into these different places. Like what is, and it like is written kind of how I said it. I almost was basically, I read this one more than like retold it because it's like so succinct where it's like, this goes to this place, this goes to this place. And I was like, why? I was just confused the whole time until things started falling. And I was like, oh,
the dominoes started falling. Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know how dominoes worked, but now that I know how they work, I see how this is going to end, So it was like, it was more fun to retell the second time and like today on the podcast, or not retell on the podcast than it was like to read it the very first time. It was just kind of like, I was just mostly confused. And then I was like, wait, why? But then it was like fun and funny. And especially having heard your story that you retold just now before I told mine, it was like, oh, the connections to be like, oh, like the pin and the needle are like a thing. The egg is a thing too, like with like the eggshells. It's like, oh, interesting.
I do want to say that back when it was before it was the ATU index, when it was the it might even be earlier than that.
Before when it was just index.
Yeah, when it was just like the fairy tale index. It was type 210 still, but it was called Cock, Hen, Duck, Pin, and Needle on a Journey. But then when reclassifications were being like gone over and they were looking at other types that had been found from different parts of the world, they started to like be like, okay, maybe like how are we going to still have this be a type, but have it make more sense? And that's when it was like changed over to being like the traveling animals and the wicked man. And so I say all that to say now we're moving away from Europe, where originally when they were looking at the fairy tale index, when they were coming up with the ATU types, it was mostly focused in Europe. And so bearing that in mind and that name change that happened, looking at a story in Japan now. And this story is called The Monkey and the Pheasant. It'll be really interesting to people who know the story of the Little Red Hen. This story starts off very much like the Little Red Hen, where it has the motif of trickster shams sickness so that partner does all of the work. Little Red Hen is kind of like that, where the hen keeps asking the other animals like to help get grain planted, harvested, ground up so that it can be made into bread eventually, and nobody wants to help out, nobody wants to participate. So you'll notice that it starts off a little bit like that before it takes a turn. So there was once a monkey and a pheasant that had a rice paddy together. And it was time for them to start getting the field ready for harvesting. And so the pheasant went to the monkey and was like, monkey, monkey, everyone else is working on their rice paddy terraces. It's probably time that we start doing that too. And the monkey was like, oh no, pheasant, my friend, my feet are really hurting bad right now. And so I can't help you. And the pheasant was like, oh no, that's fine. I understand. You can just stay home, take care of yourself. I'll handle this. And you'll help me at the next stage. And the monkey was like, oh, sure, definitely. So time passed and it was ready to start tilling up the ground and like the rice paddy. And the pheasant again went to the monkey and was like, so everybody else is starting to like dig up their fields, like spay them up and get them ready to go. So we should probably get out there and do that. And monkey again was like, oh no, my head is hurting really bad. So I'm not going to be able to help you. I'm so sorry. The pheasant was like, oh no, it's okay. You'll help me with the next thing. And so pheasant went out and, started spaying up the earth in the rice paddy. So a couple days later, pheasant went to monkey and was like, okay, so everybody is starting to set their rice plants in the rice paddies. We should probably go out and do ours too. Monkey was like, oh, this is terrible timing because I have been trying to get over this terrible cough that I have. I'm having so much problems like breathing. I don't think that I can help you right now. I'm so sorry. Pheasant was like, oh no, I totally understand. It's fine. You don't have to worry. I'll go and do it. So the pheasant went out, planted all the rice plants by himself. Then the rice paddies were watered. The grass around them was cut, and the summer was passing through, and pheasant was the only one going out taking care of these rice paddies the entire time. Then we got into autumn. It was almost time for harvesting the rice. And so again, pheasant went and was like, monkey, everyone else has started harvesting their rice. We should gather ours too. And this time monkey was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. I don't know why, but my back is really hurting and my hands and my feet are in pain and my head hurts really bad. And I can't even stand like talking right now because like I hurt like all over. And pheasant was like, oh, okay, I understand. And he went out, worked hard, harvested the rice all by himself, and then he threshed it, and finally the rice was finished. And the monkey then went to pheasant and was like, oh, dear friend pheasant, you have worked so hard up until now. So today let's make some mochi and eat it together. And to make the mochi, it's a pounded rice dough.
Yeah.
It's like powdered rice then turned into like a dough.
It's wild to watch. There's like videos of them pounding mochi like online that come across my feeds occasionally, and they're like always super fun because like there's one person that's like having to fold the like dough back over on it, and then the other person's like whacking it with this huge amount, and you're like convinced that person's gonna get their hand smashed, but they don't, and they're going so fast. You should definitely look into it. And mochi's delicious, so you should definitely eat some of it if you get the chance.
Thank you for telling me too how, because I don't think I've ever watched like a video of them like actually like making.
Oh man, you have to. I've seen it in person. It's really cool too.
I'm like, that's good information for like. I'm like, that's good color commentary for like what we're doing of like background. Because it was like monkey had finally come to pheasant to be like, yeah, let's make some mochi. Let's pound out the rice to make this mochi and eat it. And the pheasant was like, oh, all right. Yeah, we can do that. Because finally monkey was helping to do something.
Right.
So pheasant and monkey began to make the mochi together. And it says they steamed the rice in the rice steamer. And then they took out their mochi mortar and pestle and they began to pound the rice. And I love they like include like little like words where they're like, barata, thump, whack. And so I was like, oh, I love the automatopoeia, like the sound put into it of them like working. And it said when they'd finished the mochi, the monkey said, oh, dear friend pheasant, can you go and get us some water so that we can rinse off? And the pheasant was like, oh, for sure. So he went off with a bucket to fetch some water from the kitchen. And once he was gone, monkey took the mochi out of the mortar, stuck it on the end of the pestle, and then just like ran off into the mountains, into the woods. And so Pheasant comes back with this bowl, this like bucket of water, and looks around and sees Monkey gone and Mochi gone. And he's like, oh, Monkey was never my friend. Monkey is a wretched, horrible person. I hate him. And so he went to go and try to look for him, try to find him, but he couldn't find him anywhere. And so it says, greedy Monkey ran along without watching carefully, and the mochi fell off the pestle as he was going through a thicket, and he did not notice it. Which I'm like, wow, all for nothing is like what all that was for. You're wasting everybody's time, including your own. And so finally, Monkey like slows down, thinks he's gone far enough, and he's like, oh, Pheasant's probably crying right now, realizing that I'm gone, but I'm going to deeply enjoy my mochi. And as he went to go and grab the pestle, I'm assuming from his tail, that's how I like pictured it in my mind. But wait, do only New World monkeys have tails?
I think Japanese monkeys have tails. I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, also Dragon Ball Z, that's based off of like some Chinese thing. Like, and he has a tail, it's like a monkey tail, but it's based off like some Chinese like superhero thing.
So they do have tails, but they have short, stubby tails. Oh. And but that's Japanese macaques. Are there other monkeys in Japan?
I don't know.
No, they just have macaques. Okay, so there are some old world monkeys, like when I like say that have longer tails, but it's limited. And yeah, it looks like none of them in Japan have long tails. So I was imagining it wrong.
I did not know that there was really only like one species of monkey in Japan, number one. And I'd never heard the phrase old world, new world monkey before.
And did you assume I was racist? I would.
No, I was just like, oh, how am I so ignorant about the worldedness of monkey? I don't know.
All right, back on track. So the monkey went to look at the pestle and saw that his mochi was gone. And the monkey was like, oh no, where'd the munchies go? Where did oh man, I'm struggling. He's like, oh no, where did the mochi go? Now I have to go hunt this down. And so he had to retrace his steps going back towards where he just run from to see if he could find the mochi. And after he had been walking for a while, he ran back into Pheasant, who, had gone looking for him. And Pheasant was picking the dirt off of the mochi that he had found on the ground and eating the mochi, enjoying it since it had fallen there. And Monkey said, oh, Pheasant friend, is this where you are? What does that thicket mochi taste like? And Pheasant was like, oh, well, there you are, Monkey. I was looking for you. And if you pick the dirt off of thicket mochi as you eat it, it's pretty delicious. And Monkey was like, oh, would I be able to have a little bit of that? And the Pheasant was like, oh, no, Monkey, you can go ahead and have the mochi that's stuck on the pestle that you're holding. I'll blow the dirt off of this thicket mochi and eat it. And the monkey was like, I don't care what you're doing. Give me some of that mochi. The Pheasant was like, I'm not going to give you any of this at all. And then Monkey was like, fine. Then this evening, I am going to come back to your house and I will have my revenge on you. Remember that.
Oh, man.
And Monkey left, very, very angry, ran off into the mountains. So Pheasant was like, okay, I didn't want to make Monkey that angry at me because I feel like he wronged me pretty badly. And I was just like pointing it out. And now he's going to have revenge on me. Like, what is this? And so he's starting to get worried because like he is not a good physical match against Monkey. And he knows that. And so he went home crying, which I'm like, oh, that's so sad. He'd lost a friend and now his friend is like, coming to get him. That I don't know. There's something so relatable about like realizing like, oh, wait, that person was never my friend. I imagined that they were my friend, or I really wanted them to be my friend, but they've never treated me well. And then to have them be like, oh, actually, and I hate you and I'm coming to get revenge on you. I'm like, oh, this poor bird.
Poor bird,
I've been
indeed.
I've been there.
You've been to bird?
I've been the bird. It's very relatable. It's rough. Hate to see it happen. But anyway, so while he was crying, walking home, Egg came rolling by. And now we get the weird like items that start to show up on this trip with us. And so Egg comes rolling up and is like, why are you crying, Pheasant? What's wrong? And so Pheasant told him, like, the monkey said he's going to come and get revenge on me tonight. And I'm so scared and I'm crying. And it's horrible. And the Egg was like, what? No. Don't cry about this. I am here to help you. And the Pheasant, while feeling a little comforted by that, still like kept crying. And then a door bar came plodding by. So a door bar is like a bar that you lay down across your door so that it can't be busted open. Anyway, if people can't imagine it, it's like a stick. It's like a 2x4. Something between a stick and a 2x4. So it comes by and it's like, oh, Pheasant, friend, why are you crying? And he's like, it's nothing except that the monkey's going to come tonight and have revenge on me. And I'm just really upset. And Dorbar was like, oh, no, friend, I will help you. You don't have to cry anymore. But the Pheasant was still like pretty upset. And an earwig and a bitter bug came by. And then a tatami needle came. Do you know what a tatami needle is?
I'm not sure what a tatami needle is. I know like the tatami mats are like the kind of like the floor that they're on, but it's like they're sewn together, like the pieces of, I don't actually know what it's made of. Now that I think of it, like bamboo or whatever.
So I looked up a tatami needle and they're huge. They're absolutely gargantuan.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they are. That's crazy.
They're shaped exactly like whatever needle you're currently imagining at home, except imagine them 7 inches long.
Yeah. Yikes. It's like, this is what mice use as swords.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. So it's an earwig, a bitter bug, and a tatami needle come by. And then also a horse-fed mortar, which I'm assuming is, for the sake of this, a giant. Oh, so a horse feed mortar is like a mortar from like a mortar and pestle, except it's much bigger. It's a huge, like, it's like a huge stone mortar for like grounding up. Almost maybe the heaviness of a millstone, you'd probably say.
Yeah, I would say.
And some dung came by, which I love, like an animated pile of crap. And so yes, the group that we have assembled, we have an egg, a door bar, an earwig, a bitter bug, a tatami needle, a horse feed mortar, and a clump of dung. And they all said, Pheasant, don't cry. Like, we're your friends. We're here to help you. And so finally, Pheasant was feeling like better now that he was surrounded by like this extremely encouraging group of weirdo friends. I'm just imagining this like animated pile of dung being like, don't cry. We're friends. We're here to help. So they all went back to Pheasant's house. And the door bar went to the entryway. The egg went to the fireplace. The tatami needle went to the side of the fireplace. The earwig got in the water kettle, and the bitter bug got into the miso. If you've ever had any miso, salty bean paste. So food, as if anybody's had miso soup, I'm a huge fan. But anyway, got into the miso tub. And so like it's like a tub holding this like paste that is then used to like flavor like other like things. You wouldn't want a bitter bug inside of it, is what I'm saying. And then the dung spread itself on the step leading into the garden, which
there's worse things that it could have done, honestly, but
Yeah. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad he went to lay outside where it can be of most use. And the horse feed mortar climbed up into the rafters above the ceiling. So all of them got into place and waited for the monkey to come. And soon night fell. The scene has been set. So in the distance, they started to hear Monkey calling out creepily to the pheasant, "Pheasant, pheasant, I've come to get revenge. Pheasant, pheasant, are you there?" I'm like, stop terrorizing this, like, poor bird.
Yeah, pretty creepy.
Well, yeah, which but the worst thing that this bird did to you was he ate the mochi off of the ground that you tried to steal from him.
Yeah.
Is what his crime is. So mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pheasant was listening. All of them were listening in the dark as Monkey was getting closer and closer. And he's like, "Pheasant, pheasant, open this door. I'm Monkey and I've come for my revenge." And the house remained silent. And he was like, "Are you going to open the door for me or aren't you? Even if you don't open the door, I'm coming in anyway." And he slammed the door open with a big bang. And when he did that, the door bar fell and hit him bonk on the head. And in the dark, Monkey, didn't know what had just happened or what had just hit him. He didn't know what hit him. And he was like, "What was that? What hit me? Oh my gosh, why is it like so cold in here? Like, what's going on?" And so he ran over to the fireplace so he could get some light. And he started to blow on the fire to make it get bigger and hotter and bigger and hotter so that he could light up the room so he could see what was going on. So just then, the egg got so heated up that it burst and exploded into his face. And he was like, oh my gosh, like my face, like it's like on fire. Oh, I thought it hit him in the face. My bad. It hit him in the genitals.
Yikes.
I assumed it hit him in the face. That was wrong of me to assume. He was holding his hands over his genitals. And so he ended up falling over backwards onto his rear end. And when he did that, I apologize for what I'm about to say. The tatami needle stuck right up his anus.
Oh my goodness.
And he was like, "Oh no, it's hot. I'm burning. It hurts. Oh no." And he was like, "Oh, miso. Miso is a good salve. Like it'll help calm down my burns." And so he ran over to the tub of miso. And I love it. It's like he intended to smear some on his burns, but by mistake got it in his mouth. And I'm like,
what?
Wait, you went to rub it on your burning genitals, but you were like, "Oops, my bad, got it in my mouth."
Happens all the time.
No judge. Yes, happens all the time. And when he put it to his mouth, he bit down on the bitter bug. And he was like, "Oh, this tastes horrible. This tastes horrible. I need some water." So he ran over to the kettle of water and he plunged his head into it. And when he did, the earwig reached out and bit off his tongue.
Oh my gosh.
Ah! And then the monkey shouted, which I was like, he got his tongue bit off. How is he being so articulate? But anyway, he said, "Instead of me getting revenge on the pheasant, he has been laying revenge for me." And he started to run out the back door to escape, but he slipped on the dung and fell head over heels. And it was at that moment that the horse feed mortar said, now was the time to finish off that greedy monkey. And tumbled from the rafters, he completed the revenge on the monkey.
Boom.
It has a nice little ender. You guys know how much I like enders. With this, it's sold out. Lights out, mister. So again, I'm sorry about the animal on animal violence. Do you like how I didn't apologize for the man that got murdered?
Yeah.
I felt like this violence was way more egregious. But I love that in this story, one, that it combines multiple motifs where the story starts painting a picture of why this character is naughty. And Geoff was telling me at an earlier point, I can't remember if it was another podcast episode or what, about that Monkey is typically a character in stories in Japan where they need a character that's naughty, mischievous, a problem.
Yeah.
Usually there's tales where it's monkey versus crab. And there's actually like another story that is in this like motif that involves a crab, monkey and crab kind of like fighting with each other, because that's like pretty typical. But I like that like in this story, we actually see the storytellers have a reason to punish monkey. Like they set it up really well, not just to have this like cascading injury upon injury upon injury event happen, but they show like why. They justify like the reason behind it instead of like the Grimm stories that we retold. And so I'm not saying that like watching monkey get attacked was satisfying, because that seems a little, but you can see how like the story is a little more satisfying because you have that background. And then this story also illustrates what we were saying earlier about how the way that this story structure is, you can substitute any object, any critter like into the story. And so you can get creative with it. You can be like, oh, a tatami needle. Do you know where I wouldn't want that stuck up? My anus.
Anywhere, but especially.
So I'm hoping that in this new year, new us, we'll be able to like retell some more tales that are just like fun. I hope that these stories were fun, people, and not traumatic. But I'm hoping that this year we can tell some really fun tales, get kind of like, I don't know, a wider variety of like different random tale types in the mix for us to enjoy and just have fun with, realize the joy in these tales and the true entertainment value of some of these folk tales.
Thank you for listening to The Fairy Tellers. If you enjoy what we're doing, please leave us a review or share us with your friends. For access to exclusive bonus content, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thefairytellers. Special thanks to Andy Forey for our music and to Clarice Inch for our artwork. And of course, a big thank you to all our patrons. Without all of you, this show wouldn't be possible.
Good stories pay little attention to cultural or linguistic frontiers. The student of story collections find themselves adrift on an ocean of stories, an ocean which is boundless, deep, and ceaseless in motion. Robert Irwin.
Mostly what I will remember from that is that I got possessed by a ghost.
Yeah.
And then knocked out to stop me from attacking other people. But then Geoff's mom like refused to give up on me, and she kept like trying to like stay with me and like help me. Bless her. I think her character was like a very small, not strong, and she kept like rolling to try to like
she was trying to pick you up and carry you with her. Yeah. Meanwhile, like your husband's character comes along and he's like, can I just stab her? Can I just kill her to make sure that she's dead and not just knocked out?
Wow, Katrina's really concerned about being racist. She won't call people howlers or hooligans.
Or any of those H words.
Hoodlums. No H words, no N words.
Only
just
R words. Ragamuffins and Riff Raff.